Now, the UK Prime Minister Theresa May has been grilled at the House of Commons over a draft Brexit deal that she and her cabinet have agreed to. Two cabinet ministers have resigned, including the Brexit secretary.
So, Mr. Speaker, the choice is clear. We can choose to leave with no deal, we can risk no Brexit at all, or we can choose... Or we can choose to unite and support the best deal that can be negotiated.
Paul Brennan, following the story, joining us from London. How much of this is now a real crisis for Theresa May?
I think it is a real crisis for Theresa May. The wheels are in motion already for a no-confidence motion in her leadership. There's letters that have been submitted to the Conservative Party backbench group, the 1922 committee, which, if they reach 48 letters confirmed, would trigger a no-confidence motion. Now, there's no guarantee that they would subsequently win a no-confidence vote that would follow on from that, but the very fact that there is that level of disquiet is a real blow to the Prime Minister, who only just 16 hours ago came out and said she had the collective backing of her government ministers in the cabinet to pursue this Brexit deal that had been negotiated. We've lost 6 members of the government so far today. As you say, 2 of them at cabinet minister level, including the Brexit secretary. And that session that you heard a clip of from Parliament, a 3-hour session, was bruising towards the Prime Minister. I mean, she's been praised in the chamber for her professionalism, her dedication, but it was an hour into that session before anybody said anything good about this deal that she's come back with, and she's in a really bad place at the moment. And yes, it is a crisis for her.
All right, Paul Brennan, thank you. Let's now speak to Ian Dunt. He's the editor at politics.co.uk, joining us from London. Are people going to be voting again in a general election? I mean, is May's position herself in jeopardy right now?
Her position is definitely in jeopardy. We're a few stages away from general election. The first thing is we're going to see whether she can survive these letters that are now being sent by Conservative MPs. If she manages to survive that process, which is in no way guaranteed, she'd then get her deal and she'd put it in front of Parliament. Now, at the moment, there's no way Parliament's going to vote for that deal. I mean, she's not getting support from anywhere. She's managed to find a sort of no man's land of pulling the UK away from the EU so much that Remainers and soft Brexiters will never accept it, and yet still keeping it fundamentally within a sort of EU ecosystem for tariffs. And that upsets the Brexiters. So there's no support there in Parliament. What happens when this thing falls down? And that is something that we don't really know the answer to. Could be a general election. It could be another referendum, see if there was another result. It could be no deal, which is in March 29th. Britain leaves the European Union with no deal, with nothing in place. And that would be a really rather apocalyptic situation to be dealing with.
Is there even going to be a meeting that takes place with Brussels on November the 25th as scheduled?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the things that they were putting out from Brussels earlier today was, unless there are exceptional circumstances, this meeting will go ahead. I mean, you have to sort of define the word exceptional. When you look at what is going down in Westminster right now, it does look rather exceptional, and it's quite possible that the Prime Minister won't be there. If she goes, the deal is pretty much dead, and there'll be no reason for that meeting to go ahead.
What is your reaction to the resignation of 6 members of government, and that's just today, including the Brexit minister himself?
It's kind of extraordinary. I mean, the Brexit minister seems to be resigning over a deal that he supposedly negotiated. So there is a sort of level of irresponsibility, I have to say, from the Brexiters in government, which has now reached fairly staggering proportions. They constantly came up with this sort of dreamlike vision of Britain outside of the EU, set free from the shackles of continental regulation and the like. Whenever that dream has met reality, the bruising reality of a much stronger trading partner, a pulverizingly tight timescale, and a series of simple sort of trade laws and trade realities which limit what you can do, they have tended to throw their toys out the pram, and this has been a case in point. Dominic Raab, the current Brexit secretary that just resigned, followed from David Davis, the Brexit secretary who resigned before that. So over and over again, what we see is when the Brexit supporters in government actually meet the reality of what it is that they're proposing, they suddenly resign. And that does not bode well for the rest of the project.
You were mentioning the possibility of a second referendum just a moment ago. Realistically, how likely is that? And is there appetite for that to go ahead?
It's unlikely, but it is possible. And right now, I'd say it's probably more likely than it has been before. Ultimately, May's deal was the compromise proposal. Now, it wasn't a very good compromise. It was pretty ugly stuff, frankly, but it was a compromise proposal. As that falls down, the extremes of the debate rise on either side. And the extremes are no deal on the Brexit side or a people's vote, second referendum, on the Remain side. And it would have to be one of those two options, maybe a general election. And these are the kind of things that suddenly come into play. So at the moment, look, I think it's unlikely, but it becomes more and more likely with each passing day.
All right, Ian Dunt, we thank you for joining us from London.